In 1838, the Ellison Breeding Complex, the largest forced birth farm in the American South, recorded something its overseers swore was impossible. Every one of its 500 enslaved women vanished in a single night. Hours earlier, Captain Silas Harrow had finalized a mass sale that would scatter those women across 5 states, confident that the system controlling them was too tightly engineered to ever crack. By dawn, the farm's ledgers were ash, its holding pens collapsed, and its entire infrastructure destroyed with a precision none of the owners could explain. Harrow survived long enough to report only one detail. The women had not fled blindly. They moved with coordination he never imagined they possessed. How did 500 captive women dismantle the very empire built to contain them? What did Harrow overlook that sealed the farm's destruction? Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. Dawn broke gray over the Ellison Breeding Complex. Mara Ellison moved through the infirmary's dim interior, her calloused hands sorting dried herbs with practiced efficiency. Lavender for calming, willow bark for fever, yarrow to slow bleeding. She arranged clean cloths in neat stacks on the scarred wooden table. Her movements deliberate and precise. The air smelled of lye soap and old blood. Mara was 42 years old, though the lines around her eyes made her look older. Her dark hair was pulled back tight beneath a faded headscarf. She wore the same worn gray dress she'd worn for 3 years, patched at the elbows and hem. Her reputation among the 500 women on the farm was simple. Mara delivered babies safely. She knew which herbs stopped infections. She understood when to push and when to wait. She spoke quietly but firmly. And when she gave instructions during labor, everyone listened. The women trusted her because she had never lost her gentleness, even here. The infirmary door swung open. Morning light cut across the floor. Captain Silas Harrow stepped inside, his boots striking the floorboards with sharp precision. He was tall and lean, maybe 35, with pale skin that looked like it never saw honest work. His uniform was immaculate. Every button gleamed. His dark hair was combed back so severely it looked painted on. "Mrs. Ellison," he said. His voice was soft, almost pleasant. "I trust the facility is prepared." Mara kept her eyes down. "Yes, Captain." Harrow had arrived 3 weeks ago with a leather case full of documents and new rules he called efficiency reforms. He timed meals to the minute. He reorganized work assignments based on calculations he made in a small notebook. He walked through the quarters after dark, counting heads, making marks in his ledger. Everything was about numbers with Captain Harrow. He moved to the window and looked out across the farm. "The Harper woman is in active labor, I'm told." "Yes, sir." "Lydia, she's been laboring since midnight." "And your assessment?" Mara hesitated. "The baby is positioned wrong, turned sideways. It needs time to shift. Or I need to." "How much time?" "Could be hours, could be longer." "Births don't follow schedules." Harrow turned to face her. His expression never changed. "Everything follows schedules, Mrs. Ellison. You simply haven't found the correct one yet." A young woman appeared in the doorway. Her name was Ruth. She was breathing hard. "Mara, please. Lydia's asking for you." Mara grabbed her basket of supplies and followed Ruth to the small birthing room at the back of the infirmary. Harrow's footsteps followed close behind. Lydia Harper lay on a narrow cot, her face slick with sweat. She was maybe 20 years old, small-boned and fragile. Her breathing came in shallow gasps. 2 other women knelt beside her, holding her hands. Their faces were tight with worry. Mara set down her basket and placed a gentle hand on Lydia's swollen belly. She felt the position of the baby, still sideways. The contractions were getting stronger, but nothing was progressing. "Lydia, honey, I need you to breathe with me," Mara said quietly. "In through your nose, out through your mouth. Just like that." Lydia's eyes were glassy with pain and exhaustion. "I can't, Mara, I can't." "You can. You've done this before." Mara soaked a cloth in cool water and pressed it to Lydia's forehead. She began working her hands along Lydia's abdomen, trying to encourage the baby to turn. The technique required patience. It required time. Harrow cleared his throat. "Mrs. Ellison, what is the delay?" "No delay, Captain. The baby needs to shift position before it can come." "Then shift it." "I'm trying, sir. These things take. I've read the medical texts." External manipulation should take 15 minutes at most. Mara's jaw tightened. The books don't account for every situation. Then perhaps you're not using the correct technique. The other women in the room went very still. Mara kept her hands on Lydia's belly, kept working, kept trying to feel which way the baby might turn. Lydia cried out as another contraction hit. Her back arched off the cot. Minutes passed. Then an hour, then 2. Lydia's breathing changed. It became shallow and rapid. Her lips took on a grayish tint. Mara recognized the signs immediately. Something was wrong internally. Bleeding most likely. Maybe a tear. Maybe the placenta separating too early. "Captain, I need you to leave," Mara said. Her voice was firm now. "I need space to work. I need to observe I will not." "Get out." Mara didn't look at him. Her hands moved faster, checking Lydia's pulse, lifting her eyelids. "Ruth, get me the yarrow. All of it." Harrow didn't move. "Mrs. Ellison, you will remember if you want this baby to live, you'll let me work." Harrow studied her for a long moment. Then he turned and left, closing the door behind him with a soft click. Mara worked for another hour. She used every technique she knew. She tried to slow the bleeding. She tried to shift the baby. She tried to save them both. Lydia stopped breathing just after noon. The baby never drew breath at all. Mara sat back on her heels, her hands stained red. The other women in the room began to weep. Quiet, careful weeping, the kind that didn't make noise, the kind that had learned not to draw attention. Ruth covered Lydia's face with a clean cloth. Mara closed her eyes. She had delivered hundreds of babies in her life. She had brought new life into this terrible place again and again. Each time she felt the same crushing weight. Another child born into chains. Another mother whose body was used and discarded. She had spent her entire life delivering children into a system designed to exploit them. When Harrow returned an hour later, he didn't ask questions. He simply made a note in his ledger and walked out. The women cleaned Lydia's body in silence. Dusk settled over the farm. Mara moved through the infirmary alone, scrubbing blood from the floor with a stiff brush. Her back ached. Her hands shook slightly from exhaustion. She worked methodically, same as always, because there was comfort in routine. She dragged the birthing cot away from the wall to clean beneath it. Something caught her eye. The corner of a leather-bound book jutted out from beneath the medicine cabinet. Mara frowned. She kept the infirmary organized. Nothing was ever left out of place. She set down her brush and knelt. The book was wedged tight as though someone had shoved it there quickly. She worked it free and stood, turning it over in her hands. A ledger. The leather cover was embossed with the initials EBC, Ellison Breeding Complex. Mara glanced toward the door. The infirmary was empty. The farm was quiet. She carried the ledger to the small table in the corner and lit the oil lantern. The wick caught and warm light spilled across the worn pages. She opened the book. The first page contained neat columns of writing in black ink. Names, ages, physical descriptions, medical histories, sale values. Mara's breath caught in her throat. She turned the page. More names, more values, transport routes written in a kind of shorthand she didn't fully understand. Dates, destinations. Her hands trembled as she flipped through the pages. And then she saw it. Annalise Ellison, age 14, light fieldwork, literate. Value $800. Route 4. Date, November 18th. November 18th was 11 days away. Mara stared at her daughter's name until the letters blurred. She whispered it aloud in the empty room, her voice barely more than breath. Annalise. She turned the page. More names filled the columns. Women she knew. Women she had delivered babies for. Women who worked beside her in the fields and the kitchens and the laundry house. Sarah Mitchell, age 28. Strong constitution. Value $950. Patience Williams, age 19. Recent mother, value $700. Rebecca Stone, age 45. Experienced cook, value $600. The numbers went on and on. Mara's finger traced down the page, her heart beating faster with each line. Every woman on the farm was listed. Every single one. She flipped ahead, scanning the dates written in Harrow's precise handwriting. November 18th. November 21st. November 25th. All within weeks. 500 women sold in batches scattered across different plantations in different states. The routes were coded, but she recognized some of the abbreviations. Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Texas. Mara pressed her palm flat against the page as if she could stop the words from being true. Her breathing came shallow and quick. The lantern flame wavered, casting jumping shadows across the walls. She remembered the day Annalise was born, 14 years ago, in a different infirmary on a different farm. Mara had labored alone through the night, biting down on a leather strap to keep from crying out. When the baby finally came, slick and wailing, Mara had held her daughter against her chest and felt something inside herself crack open. Love, fierce and terrible and absolute. She had whispered promises into Annalise's tiny ear. Promises she couldn't keep. Promises about safety and futures and freedom. Every day since she had failed those promises. But Annalise had survived. She had grown into a bright, quick-minded girl who learned to read by watching Mara's hands move across the pages of medical texts. She asked questions nobody else dared ask. She smiled at the younger children and taught them songs. Annalise believed in something better. Even here. And now Harrow was going to sell her. Mara turned more pages, her hands shaking. She found the final section of the ledger, a summary page. Total inventory, 500. Total projected revenue, $380,000. Buyer contacts, delivery schedules. It was all planned, all decided. Their fates had been predetermined without warning, without consultation, without mercy. She closed the ledger and sat in the dark, listening to her own heartbeat. The lantern burned lower. Sunrise came pale and cold. Mara hid the ledger beneath a stack of clean bandages in the medicine cabinet, tucking it far back where no one would look unless they were searching. She washed her face in the basin and braided her hair with trembling fingers. She had to act normal. She had to avoid suspicion. The day's work began as it always did. Women filed past the infirmary for morning inspections. Mara checked pregnant bellies, distributed willow bark for aches, treated a burned hand. She moved through the routine automatically, her mind spinning. Around mid-morning, Harrow appeared on the grounds. He walked with his hands clasped behind his back, surveying everything with that same calm expression. He stopped at the laundry house and spoke to the supervisor. Then he moved to the kitchens, then the work sheds. He carried his small notebook. He made marks as he walked. By noon, he had introduced 3 new rules. Morning roll call would now happen at 5 instead of 6. Meal portions would be standardized and measured. Work assignments would rotate weekly to prevent inefficient familiarity with tasks. The women received the news in silence. Mara watched from the infirmary window as Harrow crossed the yard. He moved like a man who believed order could solve everything, like cruelty was just another form of organization. She hated him with a clarity that frightened her. In the afternoon, Mara was sent to retrieve supplies from an old storage shed at the far edge of the property. The shed had been used decades ago back when the farm was smaller. Now it mostly held broken equipment and mouse-eaten sacks of grain. She pushed open the warped wooden door. Dust motes swirled in the dim light. She found the crate of lamp oil she needed and hefted it onto her hip. As she turned to leave, her foot caught on something. She stumbled, catching herself against the wall. The boards beneath her hand shifted slightly. She frowned and pressed harder. The wall panel moved. Mara set down the crate and examined the boards more closely. They were old, weathered, loose in their frame. She worked her fingers into the gap and pulled. The panel came away, revealing darkness behind it. A tunnel. Mara's breath caught. She knelt and peered inside. The passage was narrow, maybe 3 feet wide, constructed of timber supports and packed earth. It smelled of rot and stale air, but she could feel a faint breeze moving through it. She glanced back toward the shed door. No one was nearby. The afternoon work crews were all in the fields. She crawled inside. The tunnel floor was damp beneath her palms. The supports creaked overhead. She moved slowly, testing each section, expecting collapse, but the passage held. After maybe 20 feet, the tunnel widened slightly. Light filtered in from somewhere ahead. Mara crawled faster, her heart hammering. The tunnel ended at a camouflaged exit near a dry riverbed. Brush and dead vines covered the opening. She pushed through and emerged into daylight, blinking. The riverbed stretched away to the north, hidden from the main farm by a ridge of trees. No patrols would see anyone moving through here. No dogs could track scent across dried stone. Mara stared at the landscape, her mind racing. This was built for smuggling, maybe during the territorial conflicts decades back. She'd heard old stories about hidden routes, but she'd never believed them. She crawled back through the tunnel and replaced the wall panel in the shed. She carried the lamp oil back to the infirmary before anyone noticed her absence. That evening, after the final meal bell, Mara found Eliza Ward near the well. Eliza was a few years younger than Mara, lean and sharp-eyed. She had a reputation for seeing through lies and asking dangerous questions. Some women avoided her. Mara trusted her. "I need to talk to you," Mara said quietly. "Somewhere private." Eliza studied her face. The old curing shed. 20 minutes. They met in the abandoned building where tobacco used to hang. The air still smelled faintly sweet. Mara told her everything. The ledger, the sale dates, Annalisa's name, the tunnel. Eliza listened without interrupting. When Mara finished, Eliza was silent for a long moment. "You're talking about running," Eliza said finally. "I'm talking about surviving. 500 women don't just vanish, Mara. They'll hunt us. They'll send dogs and marshals. And they're selling us anyway." Mara's voice was steady, in pieces to different places. "We'll never see each other again. Our children will disappear. Everything we've built here, every connection, every bit of family we've made, it's already gone. Harrow just hasn't told us yet."